I have not. This was the first.
Never, ever, ever, ever heard of him before, ever. And like, I'm studying theatre in college and I never once heard of him.
I had no idea what it was about. And when I was like, escape from happiness, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And when we were doing the callbacks and we were reading through stuff, I was like, I don't get these characters at all.
No, I had not. No Canadian plays either. This is my first experience with anything like this ever in my life.
I had not. I feel like I had heard the name maybe mentioned, but I didn't know these plays until Mariah said, these are the plays I want to direct. And I tried to look them up online, get a synopsis of them, couldn't find anything. I found a Wikipedia page that had like, George F. Walker wrote these plays. They were published this time. And no more information. I found a couple reviews of various productions from various places. It was so almost underground for me to find this playwright and these plays that I had never heard of before.
I haven't. The only time that I really was exposed to anything Canadian was in grad school, when we talked about how the Americans really personified the dysfunctional family drama, but the Canadians do a really good job with getting the comedy part right. So before Mariah brought this play, I wasn't even familiar with him.
No. I think that's I like doing those kinds of plays though. I think that there's actually something to walking into a theater and not knowing what's about to be handed to you. There's also something to going into a story. Like there's just that suspension that you have to actually go through, and it's a completely different experience. And I think it's much better for people who want to have an adventure rather than just walk the same trails they've been walking for years.
So I found this play because I had Principles of Acting with Adonma my second semester of my freshman year, and we had to get monologues for that class. And so she told us to go to the library to pick a script off of the shelf, and so I did. I went to and I picked some scripts off the shelf, and Escape from Happiness was one of them. And I started reading through it and reading through the monologues, and I just started connecting with all of them. I actually ended up doing a monologue from there, and I remember reading it very well because I think the first part of it I read outside in alumni fields, with a pint of ice cream, which that was the first time I'd ever eaten a pint of ice cream on one sitting. And the second part of it I read, it was in a meeting, and I'd heard the speakers give this exact same talk before. And so I was bored, and so I pulled out my script and started finishing reading it, and I forgot where I was, and I started laughing out loud, and then everyone in the room was looking at me, and I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I'm being so rude right now. So I had to leave. But so that was, I liked the fact that that I was laughing so much, and that I thought that the characters, at the same time as being absurd, they have something so real about them too, and I could connect with. I like satire, because my entire thing about theater is I think story and having some sort of point is important. Why are we doing what we're doing? I want to think about something. I want to engage something, and so George Walker does that. He engages so many different ideas and asks so many questions. But I also I think he does a good job of not trying to force answers down our throats. It's he asks the questions, and he may even provide different thoughts or maybe possible answers to it, but he's not nope, this is the thing and you better believe it or you're dumb. That doesn't happen with his style of writing.
I love it because it's timeless, right? This play was written in the 60s, right? But the talks about police, the profiling, was there an Asian, was there a black, was there a turban, right? The surprise, in my opinion, at first you think that Marcus's character is the crazy cop, bad cop, because of all of this racial profiling, and then it turns out that Claire's character is the one that's a little crooked. You have actual crooks, and everybody's just existing in their life, and that's something that's relatable too, where it's not a fancy house, right? This is a working class family. This is how working class people live. I mean, the first scene is Junior on the floor, all crooked and busted up and bleeding. you know, and here's the mom carrying the baby saying, get up and dance. What is that? I love it. I love it so much, because isn't that how our lives are? Nothing in our lives are perfectly straight. We just take whatever comes and then we react to it.
What is most timeless is that understanding and that grasp of human nature, because sometimes I think you see playwrights who they're so in touch with ideas that they forget like humans, and it's like they're just using their humans just as mouthpieces of their ideas. And I think George Walker appreciates like humanity and like people and characters, and so I think he does them justice. Do we as people do we think that we deserve happiness, and is it something that we're actually kind of running away from because of the fact that we don't think that we deserve it and we're not willing to accept it or receive it when it's given? There's questions about like sexuality, like about like, hey, like is this actually as important as we're making it out to be, or is it just like, you know, another thing? Questions about, I think, like how self-centered maybe even like our culture is, like specifically the therapy things. And then I think he posed this question about police brutality, and I think he looks at the issue like obviously with a lot of humor, and I think he is agreeing that yeah, like it's not right for people to just be like beaten by the police, but at the same time I think he's saying, but wait a minute, like these policemen are dealing with people that are not always easy to deal with, and sometimes it's really scary and very frustrating. And so like, yes, let's not beat people, but at the same time we can't go and then try to beat policemen or like, you know, abuse them for trying to do this job. I'm the oldest sister, and so I've always had like, I don't know, been kind of a leader like in different ways, and I like encouraging and I love teaching like education. And then I've been a teacher's assistant since like my freshman year. I worked in student crafts, but then I immediately went in to be a teacher's assistant for Adonma. And I looked at like my skills with people and my ability to like see like larger picture things and bring things together, and I realized, I was like, you know, I think all of these skills could probably like be taken and used to like direct a play.
Escape from Happiness is partially really exciting for me because Mariah is directing it, and I have worked with Mariah in various capacities before, but never being the stage manager to her director, and so that's really exciting. Well, every director has a unique style. Some directors like to be very prescriptive and say, okay, I want you exactly at this spot at this time as you say this word. And some directors are like, well, go try it and we'll see what happens. And so it's unique. Every director communicates a different way with me, with the actors, and every director likes different things. And so for Mariah, it's really interesting to see her sort of, she's directed a little bit before, never anything to this scale, and to see her sort of developing her style.
I was really impressed with the way that she directed this show. It was a really mature look. There's a lot of fight choreography that stuff is difficult to do and to stage. And she got a great cast, just really brilliant. Only because I think she did a really excellent job with the relationships. Like I said, in the end, we as theater artists, or we as artists, period, it is our duty to reflect the society we live in.
And directing a 10-minute scene for my class, like I was like, okay, I do like this. I definitely have so much more to learn. Like I feel still like I just not really sure I know what I'm doing, but it's kind of fun, so I guess I'll continue doing it. And when they said like, hey, we're gonna accept applications for directing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply to do that. Once I realized that I'd got it, that I was going to be student directing, I was like really excited, but also like really terrified at the same time, because I was like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. It's because I had just come from assistant directing that I realized that I was starting to think about things more like a director anyway.
Mariah's a new director, and there are several freshman actors. Freshmen here meaning new to the main stage, not necessarily freshmen in college, who have, like I said, have never been on the main stage before, and have been phenomenal, did phenomenal auditions, have been doing phenomenal and doing really great work. And to see them sort of do these in these crazy roles sometimes, and to really, everybody has stepped up. And it's always exciting for me to see new actors and new directors and new stage managers and new people in general sort of develop these skills that make them really powerful, formidable in the roles that they're in. And it's exciting for me because I get to help them do that. I get to help them achieve being good at what they do.
I've told her to have fun. It's originally was called play acting, and then we dropped the play and we called it acting, but there's still play. There's some things that you can't sketch them out in a book. You can't find them in a book. You have to find them through playing around. And I know that with her rehearsal process, just like with mine, we're all Berea busy, right? So I don't think people understand and realize and recognize how much work goes into mounting a production, and particularly the last production of the semester, because we have conferences, we have spring break, like people are gone. So I told her to breathe.
Being able to come into a role that's like naked, bare bone, challenges you as an actress or an actor. And it's actually a really, really good experience.
One thing I did, I talked to one of my friends that's a cop. So I kind of like talked to him to see what actually happened, how he would react to things. And that helped because like he was kind of the old school cop, but he was kind of new, but he went by the book. So I was like, okay, that helps a lot.
I kind of think of my grandmother, my dad's mom. She, not like in a bad way, she's not like a mean person, but she's 78 now. I mean, she's old. And Nora's character isn't that old, but she kind of acts like, I'm the oldest person in this house and I can say and do whatever the heck I want and you can't do anything about it. And that's what, it reminds me of my grandmother in that way.
I think it's kind of ironic that well, I mean, maybe it's not ironic that it's just like some creepy fate, but I'm the oldest. And just ironically enough, this is both their first Berea College production. This is my fourth trailer park, Berea senior showcase, the fourth. This is my fourth main stage production with the school, and this is both of their first because Nicole is here from Ireland and Tyler is usually a techie and a kick-ass techie, but she's usually not performing. And I think it's interesting that I got to play the older sister, and I think that did help with our relationship a little bit as far as on stage and maybe even off. They're both wonderful to work with. I love them both dearly. I think they're fantastic young ladies. I can see them both going way far because they're talented. It's been wonderful because, I mean, to be honest with you, like to answer your question, I haven't had to work that hard with that. They made it easy. They made it easy as actresses too because they have that natural ability.
Well, as I mentioned already, I'm doing script analysis with Shan. And I actually used a bit of that in my approach to this play. So I kept on reading the play, and one thing I did is I didn't try to act too soon. I just said the words how they felt naturally, not forcing any feeling onto them, and just let their own natural meaning come out in their own time. And as well, when you interact with the other cast members on stage, especially Mogo, for example, because she put so much energy into it, it's better if you just leave things happen naturally and let the meaning come out itself.
So I read the like other two plays in the cycle. So I made sure to do that, and that's kind of how I built it on, because I got to see Gail kind of as a teenager going through a lot of these things, and kind of like as an older teenager going through these things, and just the ways that she kind of just like nonchalantly just like goes through life, because that's the only way that she can to be able to like survive this madhouse that she's living in. And I mean, Gail and I are very similar in a lot of ways. I think that she is a lot more spunky than I am. I'm an older sibling, and she's the youngest sibling. So she's got like, I was always a little bit more nervous about doing things because I'm like, oh, I don't really know what's gonna happen. But I think Gail's more like, I'm gonna get myself into this scrap fight, and if I can't do it, Elizabeth's gonna help me. Like she's gonna cover my ass no matter what. Like, so I think that we're very similar, and I think that a lot of people think that we're the same person, but we're not in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So like just being able to read the other plays was really helpful.
And the show is so interesting with this. The set's a little crooked. The walls are a little crooked. The story is a little crooked. The characters are a little crooked. And to see her dealing with this little bit of crookedness, and it's very exciting to watch her develop into this really competent director.
All of us, like as human beings, like we all act, like, you know, there's times that we like put on faces and we do things, but the thing that makes theater and like theater and acting as an art different from the acting that we do in our everyday lives is imaginary given circumstances. And I think George Walker does a great job of giving you imaginary given circumstances, and especially since I'd been able to go and like read the other, you know, the other plays like Better Living, so I got to see like a lot of family interactions in that play, and then I'd read Criminals in Love, and so there like once again like I just got to learn so much about who this family was and kind of the world that they were in, and knowing that this like the imaginary given circumstances for our play at the same time as like, you know, they were imaginary for this, they're based on reality, like taking that and combining it then with the great characters that like George wrote, and then having really, you know, good performers like come in and embody those characters, like that makes the world, like I think, you know, the purpose of a world is to be inhabited, and so we got to inhabit it with good performers and characters.
Here's the world, you know, and look at a perfect example. Mogo is kicking butt in this show. She is so physical. She is running around in heels, fighting people, bringing in shopping carts and stuff like that. That takes skill. To make it look that easy, to make it so that you're not breathing heavy and acting all, that takes a lot of skill. And just finding that from the words, you know, and the delivery of the line, because a lot of scripts don't tell you specifically how to deliver the lines. I was just really, really impressed. Really impressed.
I genuinely think I'm really, really lucky because the people who are in like I have a lot of scenes with I have a lot of interaction with the sisters, and I think we get on, and people say this all the time, but we get on really well in real life, and that has helped it so much. Like Mogo and Tyler are just really open, and they've just been really open to trying new things the whole time. And I think definitely if they had not been open, this would have been a different play, because as you've seen in the play, like we're really up in each other's faces, we're on the floor rolling around, like we always have to, like, because we're sisters, you know, like we'd be touching each other, hugging each other. It's really helped that they've been really open, and they've been really just open to new ideas the whole time. That's really, really helped.
I get to get all that like funny stuff out of my head and just put it into my character. So like any stresses I feel about school or about friends or family or anything, I can like put all of the things I'm thinking into this show, and it not only relieves stress, but it's fun.
And even some of this stuff has just come together in my head just like in the past few days of rehearsal, where like it's just like all this, and I'm like, oh, this is what this line means. This is why I'm talking to my dad this way, and like this is how I'm supposed to be reacting to the way that my mom's saying things. And just like sometimes it just there's part of it, there's only so much analysis that you can do sitting in your dorm room looking at a piece of paper and just writing it. It's just completely different to be able to like be moving on stage and making eye contact with these people and trying to figure out like, oh, what is my face supposed to be doing while this is going on? So like just, and being able to just be present in that moment just changes the way that you look at the basis of the character.
The example that comes to my mind is Alice in Wonderland. And people expect certain things when they go see Alice in Wonderland. They expect, you know, Alice to act this particular way, to sort of almost ditzy in a way, and they expect these characters to act a certain way. Or if you go see Winnie the Pooh, you expect him to have a red shirt, you know, and you have to sort of cater to these expectations in a way, because if you completely throw them out the window, people come to see your show and they're just blindsided. But with a show like this, people have no expectations because most people aren't going to know the show. And so they come in with very open minds, and you have a lot more freedom in the way you can stage things and the way you can make a set and make costumes, and in general, just more freedom, I feel like. If you have never seen productions before, you don't know what sort of things people have emphasized before, and are the themes I think are the main theme of this play what other people think, or am I way out in left field somewhere? I definitely think, though, that there are more advantages than disadvantages to having a show that's not very often produced.
The way that I've kind of been groomed as a theater artist is kind of to shy away from like watching other productions anyways, or really to do like really shy away from like doing too much research on other productions anyways, and so that part like didn't faze me at all. And matter of fact, I guess I thought it was kind of exciting because I was glad that like you know, that people weren't going to just like come in judging my production against somebody else's, because I know that happens a lot. Like, you know, like if you go see something like Little Shop of Horrors, everyone is going to be judging it against like probably another performance that they've seen. And so I was really glad that there wasn't a lot of history and that this wasn't very well known. Also, just because I think it's fun like to introduce new things to people.
I am very dramaturgical based in my directing focus. Kevin's been my dramaturg for the past 3 productions that I've done. So this is why I'm proud of Mariah, because in the end, you have the script. All of us, the director, the actors, the designers, we all serve the actual script. So what you have is what you have. You can go back and find the East End plays and read those to get a little bit of an idea. But in the end, you've got this particular show, Escape from Happiness. Okay, my character says this. My character calls this character this. And using your imagination, Stanislavski talks a lot about imagination and how it needs to be cultivated and developed and rich and alert and active. So I'm assuming in the rehearsal process, you play with it. You play with it. It's like, okay, let's do this. Again, we've got the script as a foundation, but let's use our own words and build these relationships. You know, it's real. That to me is very exciting, where it's like, okay, I've got a blank slate, so I'm just going to make this my own. And that's why I'm so proud of them, because they really made it their own. And you can see this is the success in the show. Is that relationship, right? We see all of these, and crooked is the right way to describe it. I mean, we first see Junior on the floor and Gail holding him, and here's Mom with the baby, but she's telling him to get up and dance. That's weird, right? So we initially start off with what's going on here, and then as we move further on throughout the show, we feel sad for the dad because we think he's feeble and old and weak, the same way that we have anger towards the first cop, towards Marcus's character. These relationships, these dynamics, the dynamics between the cops, the dynamics between the way the cops speak to the mom, the dynamics between the mom and the dad, and how those affect the children and how the children talk to each other because of that relationship. I really think that they did a fantastic job with investigating and navigating how different people relate to each other within the family, and even with the crooks, because they're father and son, we want to believe that, you know, and how they relate to each other as well. So it's all about the relationships. I think they did a really good job with that.
I love the family, like whenever the sisters were together, like, and even when the sisters were together with their mom, I always thought it was so great and so, like, so believable.
At first I was like, is she the main character? And then you kind of come to find out that Elizabeth is like the reason that all of this is happening, but I am their mother and I'm the reason they're all nutso. And that's really funny to think about, that and I don't even notice that I'm crazy. Like, I completely and totally am just off the wall, and nobody can say anything to me because I'm the mom. So that's been really fun.
I came in with the idea that this is a really selfish character. And I don't even mean selfish in a really negative way. I just mean she's obsessed with herself. She's so wrapped up in her own problems, in her own head, that she can't really live in the real world. So that is an idea I went in with, that this is someone who does not regard other people's problems at all, really. She thinks everyone should listen to her the whole time. So that was kind of like my main goal. And then the rest of it, I kind of just worked it out as I went along. Saw the other people's reactions. Like, as I went on, I discovered there's a real softness to her as well. Like, she is really selfish, but she really wants the family, and she really does believe she's at a crossroads and that she can change things. And when she's with her dad, she's really trying to mend her family and bring it back together. And the moments when she's with Tom, you can see how hurt she's been, and perhaps this is why she's so obsessed with herself, but in the play prior to this we see exactly what Tom did to the family and how much this has damaged Marianne. I think there's a real vulnerability to her then as well in the scenes where she's with Tom, and the scene as well where Gail is like, go up and talk to Tom, and she's like, oh my god, can I do this? So we do see a bit of growth even in Marianne's character, I think.
Gail's a lot more about forgiveness than I thought she would be. Like, she's kind of, like, I always said that she was like the only sane one in the family, but it's because she has found this little nugget of forgiveness in her life. I have an older sister, but I have a younger brother. So it's kind of weird to me to have two, first of all, sisters that are older than me. And Nicole and I, we've been like hanging out and like talking to each other, and like we'll just like share secrets together and stuff like that. And Mogo has been in the department. She's a year ahead of me. So she's been like kind of just a person that I've seen perform on stage and just like seen her skill and her ability to like perform as just like not just on stage, but just as a person. Like, she is just a force. And like, so that seeing that kind of like grandeur and just being able to be like, it's so easy to channel that like into being like, that's my big sister.
I'm the oldest of 4 girls. So and one of my favorite scenes is when they're all fighting Elizabeth, and then Mom comes over and just goes on her stomach. Like, who in their family does not know that moment? You know what I mean? Just really, really brilliant work, and working off of each other too. Because Courtney and Kevin are this great mom and dad part. So in my opinion, I saw a lot of Mogo's character, Elizabeth, being more like her dad. And then you've got Marianne being a lot like the mom, and then Gail's kind of in the middle. She can be a little bit of both, and the way that they talk to each other reminded me of my sisters. That's when you know you have a really good play, where it makes you think about your own life.
I think that one of the greatest things like about them and like realizing just and thinking about family and stuff like that is that I say all those things. I say some pretty shitty things to my sisters, but like, they forgive me. They're my sisters, they're my family, and I think that's like, if they offered me the same forgiveness that they offered our dad, I mean, I know it's a really big thing, but like, if they did the same thing for him that they did for me, being their like stupid little sister, they would learn a lot.
I like, it is a comedy, but there are like also like those really tender, like not funny moments, and I liked seeing how the actors were able to pick up on those and really make me believe that like they cared about each other but weren't always great at knowing how to express that, because I think that's something that is incredibly human. And I love those interactions. Yeah, mostly the family, like Stevie and Rolly, they're funny, but they're like, the play is not about them, like they're just kind of they're really more of a digression from the story. And then you have like Mike and Deanne, and they're kind of funny to watch too, but still it's like, it's obvious that the heart of this script is about the family and not about these other people. Like, those other people are more the obstacles that are trying to get in the way of this family like reuniting and growing stronger. The first scene with all of the sisters, and when they're like, when you see them having their family meeting and like Gail getting upset and Marianne going on and on about being a witch and then about Elizabeth being a lesbian, because it's just like, it's like that's the first interaction you get to see between these sisters, and obviously since that's a key like relationship, it's really important, and it's funny how we get introduced to them.
I like the fight scene. I think I'm probably gonna go with that one, because A, it's fun to do, and it's just very indicative of like a lot of our characters. I think like she's Elizabeth is like bouncing off the walls, and like, even though we're fighting, I mean, Elizabeth may not know it, but like Nicole and I are trying to get her back to a place where she is supposed to be, which is happy and with us, even though we like it when she's a little bit ticked off, but like, that's where we want her to be. We're bringing her back into the family, because if you watch the play, it takes all 3 of us to get us all into a giggling mess on the floor. That's how it happens. It's not just me, it's not just Marianne biting her, it's Mom, Marianne, and me to get Elizabeth back to where she's supposed to be. And it's a team effort. And I think that's kind of a lot of what the play is about.
I love the dynamic between Elizabeth and Marianne. I absolutely love it. Elizabeth hates her, but she loves her. And Marianne is just running after her, begging to be loved and begging for attention. And when Marianne outs Elizabeth, I absolutely love it. Marianne thinks that she knows all this information, this secret information that no one else knows because her therapist has told her, and she's so proud to have this information, and she's holding this information back, and she's making a massive deal of it. And then she tells us all the information, and we find out, oh no, we all knew this information for a while. And then her bubble is really burst when she finds out the information isn't even true. Elizabeth is not even a lesbian. And I just love the different reactions, the roller coaster of emotions. It's so much fun to do.
Sister fight. First one. That's my first favorite because it's A, hilarious, and B, like, it's not the climax of the play. The climax of the play is in scene 6, when we figure out, oh, this is the twisted cop. Aha, we got her. But I do think as far as like, I don't know, it could be a whole lot more sentimental. It could be a whole lot more sad because it's more of a family issue. Like, oh my God, all this pent up anger between sisters. We're all just trying to help each other. And in the way of that comes these cops, comes all these problems with that. And it's because, every single member of this family is in pain. And during that sister fight scene, it's like, none of us really want to hurt each other. I don't want to be pulling their hair. And they don't want to have to tackle me to the ground to give me a raspberry to get me to calm the fuck down. It's more like we're doing what we have to do because this is our sad, crazy, terrible life. We're rolling with the punches, but we still love each other.
I think it's kind of when scene 6 when like everything just goes downhill and there's so much action, and like that's when you finally see me and Deanne's like actual connection and how we feel exactly about each other.
And so I guess I'm going to have to say that my favorite scene is the fight scene at the end. That's actually 2 fights happening simultaneously because of the challenge of it, I think. And there's also a really hilarious part where 2 of the characters exit with class. The stage directions actually say that they exit with class, and I love that a lot.
I make really random comments, and I love that, especially when it's like very condescending to my daughters, because it's not like, oh, I don't want to speak, but I get to act without speaking when I'm sitting there because I get to drink my tea and I get to sit around and just listen and make faces. And I feel like the audience reacts to that. Like they're watching the action, they hear the action, but when you glance over, when you're sitting there watching a play and you glance over and the person who's not speaking isn't doing anything, you're like, man, you should stay in character. But when you watch a play and the person you look at that's not doing anything is actually doing stuff, like without talking, that's impressive because it takes a lot to act without speaking. And so I've been working on that a lot because I think that that'll be something like when an audience member is just kind of looking around, they're like, oh, action, action, action. And they're like, oh, why'd she make that face? She's like, that's crazy. So for me, that's my favorite part. And then,
oh gosh. Okay, so I literally laugh until I cry. It's Act 2, and Ben's character is passed out on the floor because Marcus's character punched him and kicked him and hit his head in the fridge. And Sean Harden, in my opinion, has stolen this show. He just points to him and he's like, fuck him. I can't stop. All of the moments are great. They're really great moments. The moment when Courtney actually says about happiness in the play, that serious, deadpan, honest moment. I loved the fight, the sisters' fight, because it reminded me of my sisters. I loved Marianne and the cake for some reason, where she's like, I just make food for people. Because I know that person. So I just make food for people. And that's what... The line, my happiness is dependent on you being nice to me. There's so many moments.
The 2 weeks before, I don't know, maybe even 3 weeks before we opened was the low point for me because I would just, and I, after talking with other directors, I'm like, oh, okay, this happens to them too. But because at that point you've been working with it so long, you've seen it so many times that it's hard to see things to see new things and to actually see the progress that has been made because you've seen it so many times and I don't know, it's just like this blindness. And so I was terrified. I was like, you know, like wanting to just go home from rehearsals and cry, and I was like, that's it. I'm a failure. This is a joke once again. Like that was, because I think it was probably because it was a comedy. That was why I constantly thought this is a joke. Like they didn't know what they were doing when they let me do this. Like why? And so after going through all of that, and then I think probably was I guess like a Donma was maybe the first person who got to see it like all the way through, other than like myself and like maybe the props masters and a couple of other people. She was one of the first people who like had not been a part of the process at all, who then got to come in and see it. And then when she saw it and like, you know, she was laughing at things, I was like, oh good, because I was so terrified that for some reason like I thought all of this was funny and yet everyone else was just gonna be like, oh, and like laugh out of pity only, and that would and that would be terrible.
Pity laughter.
Yeah, because I laughed, like I think I've said this probably multiple times, but I literally laughed every single rehearsal, like even the really scary ones, like there would always be something that like I would just start laughing and lose it. And so it was really good to see that other people were going to laugh and lose it too. And then you know, you get to opening night, and then you get to watch a whole bunch of other people watch it and laugh. And there's a student in like one of the classes that I TA for, Jairus, and I have a lot of respect for her. I think she's I'm really excited that she's a freshman in our program, and I watched her like almost fall out of her chair because she was sitting like right in front of me, and just like fall and laugh so many times, and like I was like, ha, she gets it, like she really understands it. And then she came up to me like in the next class, and she was just like, Mariah, like congratulations, like it was you know, it was ridiculously funny, I loved it, it was hilarious, like, you know, I thought all of these choices like were really good choices. And I was just like, okay, I did it. Like, I'm not a failure. Yeah, it was a great moment. And then just to continue like throughout that week to get to like, it's fun because like sometimes I would be, you know, watching the crowd more than I was actually watching the play. And I know that other directors, like I know like Deborah Martin like talks about that a lot, is like you want to watch their response really more than the show, because you've seen the show before, but now you're getting to watch all these people like enjoy it. And it's funny watching what like, especially because there's a lot of people, a lot of times, you know, that you know in the audience, and so seeing like which parts they laugh at and which parts that they think are funny, and like which parts like just go over their head. And so, yeah, that was the most exciting thing, was seeing all these people enjoy it so much. But I also really realized like seeing the cast realize that, oh, this work has been, this work has all been for something. It's not been for naught, and people are appreciating it, and we've grown and we've been successful.
It's really great. I mean, Mogo and Sean were in my production of Trailer Park, the Great American Trailer Park Musical. Sean stole that show too, by the way. So it's good to see them evolving as performers. Kevin's been my dramaturg, so to see him on stage. Marcus is in my acting class right now, and he's kicking ass in that class. So it's just like, yes, be a theater minor, you must. Claire too, she's a backstage person. She's a shop person, actually. She builds sets. So to have her on stage as well. Nicole is our transfer student from Ireland, and she's brilliant. And then Tyler, again, Tyler does lights. This is Tyler's first show. And then Courtney too. I love this idea of having non-majors in our productions, because then they realize and understand that this isn't just a magic wand play thing and then we have a show. We don't just go somewhere and pull a set out and put it on the stage and then just do a play. So as an educator, it really makes me happy to see students learning from the process and growing and being proud of themselves. That very first night, opening night, I was there, and Mariah was sitting next to me opening night, and in the back, because we like to be in the back so we can watch people. And seeing the audience respond and seeing the actors feel that response and how that drives the show. It's the best thing in the world. It's just, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Every night, roaring laughter every night. And I don't think people understand how difficult comedy is comparative to drama. You can always make people cry. You can just say something sad or do something sad and people will start crying. But comedy, the timing and the relationship and the connection, the audience has been laughing unbelievably. It's just so great.